Has anybody ever told you that your condition is all in your head? Tonight on Arisen Strength, the motivational podcast, we have special guest. His name is Jacob Moore from nostigmas.org. So let's get to it because your time is right now.
You know I can't recall the day your dream became my life. I've lived an eternity with you by my side. You by my side. Like the sun and the moon, I've seen that your light reflects mine. And riding together we have conquered the skies. But for so long I failed to see the truth as I searched for a fantasy that lived within you. Said, how did you know that you'd be my angel when your wings were trapped into my heart? Where did you see that we would be wonderful and our dreams would live where we are?
Hello, I'm Shane Schultz, and this is the Arisen Strength Motivational Podcast. Folks, we do this show because we feel there are far too many dreams, talents, and capabilities that are being suppressed for whatever reason. Whether it be injury, illness, or life experiences, these are all situations that can have us being robbed of what it is that makes us special and unique in this world, and that's our passions. Here at Arisen Strength, we encourage people to pursue their passions in spite of the challenges they face. Now, how we do that is with our 3-pillar concept. Number 1, we support. Number 2, we empower. And after all that work, number 3, we have the right to celebrate. Folks, that's the Arisen Strength concept. Our goal is to help you be more than the challenges you face. But I don't do this show without my good friend. His name is Wayne the Hack Hacker. Hey, Wayne, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, Shane. Been really busy the last week, getting ready for my final move. I had my last appointment with my psychiatrist, my last appointment with my nutritionist, my last appointment with my therapist, my last appointment with my group therapy, my last appointment with my care coordinator. So it's like boom, 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 getting everything, closing all the cases because I'm moving out of state and I'm going to pick up a lot of new services down where I'm going. Maybe not as many as I have here, but certainly be picking up a lot of services down there and shutting them all down here. So what an exhausting week it's been.
Wow, I can only imagine. People are asking, Wayne, whether or not that you're leaving the show because you're moving to North Carolina. Are you leaving the show?
No, of course not. We have modern technology. We're going to do the show exactly like we do it now. We're not in the same location when we're doing this show. So whether it's across town, across the country, we could move to different countries. Arisen Strength will go on and we'll continue to host the show. And, of course, I'll stay around as long as you'll have me.
Well, considering the fact you are a big, big part of it, I mean, our conversations that we had, the hours before dinner, the hours after dinner, folks, we just brought them to the internet and they were received in a way that we weren't even expecting, but we certainly did benefit from, being therapeutic, not only to our listeners, but therapeutic to ourselves. And I know Wayne agrees with that.
Yeah, we spent, literally hundreds of hours having conversations about how your treatment was going, how my treatment was going. What were the things that we were doing on a day-to-day basis that were helping for our own treatment, right? It's not just treatment is not passive. You don't just go to treatment and you magically get better. It's very active. You have to take a role in your own treatment. But we got to talking a lot about our treatments and we noticed we do a lot of the same sorts of things. And we think about it a lot of the same ways. And we managed to whittle it down to the pillars and foundations of Arisen Strength. We're like, these are like the highlights. If I'm doing these 3 things on the foundations, if I'm doing these 3 things in the pillars, then I'm making progress toward making my life better. And let's bring that message to other people because it's like, this is what we were doing.
Yeah, support, empower, and celebrate was definitely part of our regimen that we did throughout the time that we were going through our different therapies. And then, leave it to me to go ahead and put the pillars up before our foundations. But then we went ahead and said, okay, here's the foundations that support those pillars, which is to take ownership of you. And we kind of went back and forth on that a few times. We talked about a number of different things that kind of went along with it, but we really wanted to say take ownership of you, have accountability, because your recovery is your recovery, whether it be through mental health or whether it be medical health. And then, of course, we have the power of turning the thought, which is one of my favorites because it certainly lends to opening up to new possibilities when we look at things from a different point of view. And then number 3 is the freedom of acceptance. And I know that's one that you like.
Yeah, I love acceptance. And acceptance is not about liking the way things are. It's not like condoning. Accepting is really being real about what my situation is. And that's why I like about it. And that's why they're so freeing, because once I can accept my situation, then I can, as we love to say, kick the can't. If I can be really honest and open about what my situation is, I can recognize what are the things right now that maybe I'm not able to do as well as I want to do them. Okay. Kick the can't. Let me switch over to the other side of the page. What are the things I can do? What can I do right now? And it's really hard to come up with that list if I'm not real sure about my situation right now. If I'm lying to myself, if I'm, just not paying attention, and then I think, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And then that might lead to more failure. That might lead to more discouragement. It doesn't allow me to take advantage of the opportunities that the challenges are presenting me. Within every challenge, there's some opportunity. So look in that challenge, look for that opportunity. But once we got all these 6 ideas, these 3 pillars and 3 foundations sort of figured out, it really makes a lot of sense. And treatment made a lot of sense. And it was like, there's like turning the thought right there, that new perspective. New perspective is a beautiful thing. It's like it's a fresh eyes on the world. It's like, oh, now I see it.
Exactly. And speaking about seeing something, hey, we are launching our new website. We've been dealing with thrivehive.com, which is our consultant with our website. And it's the website for Speaking of the Heart Radio Network. The address is speakingoftheheart.org. I know you liked it when you saw it at the first time.
Yeah, it's looking really, really sharp. It's very intuitive. You look at it, you're not lost on the splash page. Some websites you go to, there's too much going on the front page, and you really don't know what to do next because it's just too busy. This is very simple. It's low key, but it's packed full of really good options, very good sections, and I think people are going to really respond well to the site. And it looks great on their mobile as well as on your laptop/PC. It's a good looking webpage, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, we wanted to do. Look, if left to my own devices, I want to help everybody. I want to affect everybody in the world. I want to be able to do everything that I can in order to be able to make an impression to somebody out there. But the thing is that what we wanted to do here and why we really focused on what we were doing with the website, we want to be the network that's out there for those who struggle the most, whether it be medical or whether it be mental health. We want people to know that we are here for them, and we're here to help restore purpose and passion to their lives. That's why we really focused with the website. We really brought it down because we want to be that network that's out there for those who are going through some very tough challenges, some challenges that sometimes it just doesn't seem as if like it's going to make a difference. But hopefully when they hear the different shows that we have, see the different events that we've got, and the blog that we're putting together, hopefully that'll maybe able to make a difference for somebody who's going through those challenges.
Yeah, we talk about progress, not perfection. It's about taking small steps at first, perhaps. But eventually, as we like to talk about, you're going to find that passion that you have inside. And then you're going to get to a place where you can pursue your own passion. We're not here to tell you what to be passionate about and to go do this specific thing that's going to make everything better. We're about getting you to a place where you can discover your own passion and then pursue your own passions. And when you're pursuing your own passions, the sky's the limit. Nothing can stop a person who's pursuing their own passions.
Yeah, speaking about passion, we have our guest. His name is Jacob Moore from nostigmas.org. He is so very impressive with the way that he goes about letting people know about mental health awareness. In fact, we were talking about having events on the speakingoftheheart.org website. We're going to be doing an event. It's a special event, which is all about Mental Health Awareness Month, and that's going to be May 7th. And Jacob is actually going to be one of those 5 panelists that is going to be on the show, Wayne.
That's going to be a really exciting show. And the one thing I'm really looking forward to that show is we're going to be branching out how we distribute this event live. It's not just going to be available here in the Zoom room, which is going to be amazing because we're going to have up to 50 people who can be sort of there in the conference room with us, the virtual conference room, while the show is going on. But there's going to be other ways to see it live without necessarily being in the conference room. Can you talk about a little bit about how those other ways are?
It really is going to be very cool. We have the capacity of 50 people to be with us live in the Zoom conference room. So just like we did with Wayne's special, hashtag lose 300 pounds, what a difference a year makes, we're going to have that capability in the Zoom room. But we're also going to be simulcasting the show on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, as well as Twitter through Periscope and a couple other different things that we're doing. So it's really going to be out there. I mean, this is something that everybody's going to be hearing about for a while. And I think that this is going to be a show that's going to be talked about for a while. I think it's going to be talked about all throughout Mental Health Awareness Month. We have such a diversified panel that we pretty much cover it all when it comes to mental health awareness. I mean, we've got Janine Huff, we've got Chrissy Hodges, Z Malvern, Jacob Moore, Gabe Howard. We have us with me hosting the event, and Wayne is going to be at the event as well. We're also going to be inviting other people who are advocates about mental health awareness. We're going to be doing a special invite to them as well. So is that everybody is part of it, because in my personal opinion, it's all for one. Right? We're all doing what we're doing in order to be able to help as many people as we can. And I really think that this event has that potential. Now, speaking about potential, Jacob Moore, we have him tonight with No Stigmas, but I want to say something about his Ally program before we get into the interview. I know that you took an advocacy course not that long ago, didn't you, Wayne?
It was about 3 years ago. I took an advocacy training here in the state of New York, and it was an 80-hour course that lasted about 2 weeks. And it was a lot of really good information, very dynamic presenters. I got a nice certificate. I have all the resource materials from it. Definitely was a great experience in my life. But what he's doing is something online and a little bit more scaled down, but no less important, the information he has distilled into these videos that he has. There's about 30 minutes worth of videos, and every single word that they utter is important and really powerful message.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Now, this program starts May 1st. It's called the Ally Program, and there's two portions of it. And Jacob wanted to be really clear about this. There's the support portion, of course, but now they are going to do online training for you to be a No Stigmas ally. So you're actually going to be trained how to become an ally, similar to what Wayne was talking about when he went through the advocacy program he had gone through. This is all about training, but it's not missing the point that it's all through self-care, peer support, and advocacy. They have a newsletter. So what you want to do is you want to make sure to go to nostigmas.org today, get on that newsletter so that you can be notified when they go live on May 1st. This is going to be a really, really cool program. I really want to emphasize this. Make sure to go there today to sign up for the newsletter, and that way you'll be notified when they go live on May 1st. It's going to be really cool. What'd you think about our interview with Jacob?
I loved it. I say that every week, I guess, with these different interviews. And each week I say, oh, this interview was the best one ever. And every week it seems like it is the best one ever. And this one is the best one ever. And we talked at the beginning here. We had a pretty good discussion about the pillars and foundations of Arisen Strength. Listen to this interview and see where you can hear the pillars and foundations resonating in everything that Jacob is talking about. It's just really, really powerful. And there's a really great message of self-care, which I think is sometimes it gets left out. Sometimes we forget to mention that. But we got to look out for ourselves, right? We got to make sure that I'm putting myself in the best position possible so that I can help other people. If I focus too much on helping other people and neglect myself, Jacob talks about that experience and that sort of fact that we need to take care of ourselves. But taking care of ourselves doesn't mean only take care of ourselves, right? We get to walk along with the community. We get to bring the community along with us. But we need to be looking out for ourselves as well as supporting and advocating for other people.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Jacob Moore is very, very cool. I noticed that right away. I've been wanting to have him on my show for quite a while now. And then all of a sudden he sent me an email and said, hey, I'd love to be on your show. We got to talk for a little while, it's been a while now. And we realized that our lives are very parallel to one another. been through some similar issues, some similar events in our lives. It was like one of those things as to where, man, it just felt really, really comfortable. He's a very good friend of mine now. I mean, we call each other brothers and everything in that sense. We really think that this interview, as far as speakingtheheart.org, we really feel that this interview is going to make an impact for a long time to come. Whether you listen to it live here right now or whether you listen to it in the archive, this is something that a lot of people can benefit from, and we're really excited to it. So why don't we get to it?
Sounds great.
I'm here with my good friend. His name is Jacob Moore from No Stigmas. Hey, Jacob, how are you today?
I am so great, Shane. How are you doing?
You know, I am doing really, really great. I appreciate you coming on to the show. I've been waiting to do this interview for a long time now.
My pleasure. Absolutely.
Excellent. So tell me about No Stigmas. I mean, this is something that you are all in on. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what No Stigmas is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So No Stigmas is a nonprofit organization, and our purpose is to empower a global mental health community. We do that through education, support, and action. Essentially, it's created for peers by peers.
Very cool. Man, I don't know, audience. Did that sound familiar to you? Because Arisen Strength kind of is like parallel to that. Our pillars are to support unconditionally, empower to be more than the challenges that you face. And then we do a little bit different as to where after all that work, we have the right to celebrate. That's something definitely want to do because we want to reward ourselves more than what it is that we do. Because I think a lot of people get caught up of what should be done, what's supposed to be, you know, what the average person does and all that nonsense. I don't think we reward ourselves enough. Do you?
No, I absolutely agree with that. In fact, I've been working with a coach who talks a lot about the overachiever mindset. When we reach a goal as overachievers, or as some people like to say, type A personalities, oftentimes we don't give ourselves the permission to enjoy it. And as soon as we get to that point, we start having this rumbling in our stomach that says, okay, what's next? Right?
Exactly.
And you never take that time to say, wait a minute, I made it here.
Yeah.
And, you know, with mental health, it's so important to celebrate those small victories, whether it's, you know, finding stability in medication or counselor that works for you, or even just getting out of bed in the morning. Like, that's a victory and you have to celebrate it. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And it's funny how you talk about what's next, because my friends used to joke on me and said that that was going to be on my tombstone, you know, because it was always what's next. Every time that I would finish something, okay, what's next? Every time, especially when I was dealing with my challenges and struggles with mental health, or even with my physical health, which recently I have a nerve condition that I've been dealing with. And it was always, okay, what's next? I got that done. What's next? What's next? And that's really easy to kind of fall into.
Absolutely.
And then not acknowledging what it is that you did over time, whether it be a short period or a long period. And it's funny because as a younger person, I was always involved in personal development very young, whether it be Tony Robbins, Earl Nightingale, or Zig Ziglar, or whatever the case may be. And I thought that I knew what goal setting was all about. You vision the goal and then you get the goal. You know what I mean? You go get it.
Right, right.
But there's steps, right? There's steps to getting to that goal.
That's true.
And so I was going like from A to G, and I'm thinking, all right, well, here's goal and here's where I'm at. And I need to get here to G, so that's my goal. And so I envision it and everything and get ready to get there and everything. And then I would only get to like E. So what would happen is that because I didn't get to that goal, it was a failure to me, or at least it felt like a failure to me.
Sure.
And so it was like the game of chutes and ladders. You know, I mean, it's like you get to a point, and if you take them one step, you're on a slide going down. And so I go right back to A. And so it would feel as if like I failed. I didn't make that goal. And that's something that I've dealt with for a long time, and not realizing that there are steps that we need to take. That's something that I'm sure that you realize as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, you know, that, like you mentioned, that celebration aspect of it is really important. I recently read a quote. Someone asked Rockefeller, how much money is enough? And he said, $1 more.
Yeah. Right.
And that really hit home with me, you know, and not that I'm money driven. Certainly I'm working in a nonprofit and I work in entertainment as an actor. So I'm not money driven. But as far as that that motivation as far as being satisfied with where you are, or, relishing those small victories, because like you said, you have to take steps along the way, and each step is an accomplishment.
Right.
Each little win needs to be celebrated, especially when mental health is so fluid and it changes day to day sometimes. Just recognizing that those small victories are really huge accomplishments.
Absolutely. The thing is that when you sit there and you ritualize an accomplishment or reward an accomplishment, well, then when you fall, right? Because that's part of life. We do fall. So when we do fall, we're not taking the whole slide down back to where we started from. We're falling down to where it is that we last ritualized our accomplishment. So instead of me going from G to A, I would go to G to E.
Right.
And regroup and strengthen to be able to take on the goals that I have and accomplish that goal after taking those steps, which are now a lot less than what it is that it started out to be.
Yeah.
We both mentioned mental health, and there's a reason for that. We both have dealt with mental health in our lives. It's really kind of funny because when I was talking to you, I realized that our lives are pretty parallel to one another with what it is that we've been through and how it is that we reacted in a lot of different ways. Why don't you tell me, what does mental health mean to you, or what did it mean to you before No Stigmas became your driven purpose?
Yeah, it's certainly been an evolution over time, that's for sure. When I was young, that term was not on my radar at all. I was in survival mode. That really started when I was 6 years old. My father had moved out of our small trailer in Michigan, and it was just my mom and sister and brother. It was this weird kind of respite from his mental health issues that we had been living with, his alcoholism and his trouble with the law. And it was kind of the eye of the storm, unfortunately, because a short while after that, he died by suicide. And thanks. And, being 6 years old, I immediately went into fight or flight mode. I didn't know how to process or comprehend that. I didn't know what to do with those questions and that anger and those feelings of abandonment. So I swallowed them down. And the more I did that, the more my anxiety grew and the more the panic rose up. And the more that happened, the more I tried to shove it down. And the more I tried to shove it down, the more it seeped out in other ways in my life, in my behavior in school. And eventually I spent so much time trying to wear this mask to hide everything that was going on inside. It comes out some way. Even if we don't want to show it in public on our face, it's there. And for me, that was in private when I would have these panic attacks, and I would think that I was dying from everything from cancer to a heart attack to a resurrected strain of the bubonic plague. Right. You name it. Like I've dealt with it. I've died by it, or nearly so. It got to the point where I became paranoid that I was some type of human experiment, that I was being watched and I was a lab rat, and they were just poking and prodding me and seeing what reaction they could get. And that became a very real reality, almost, a separate reality from what was out there in the real world. Again, it comes out somehow.
Well, it's funny, like I said, we started the show, we're very parallel because I have my biological father who was a mean alcoholic drug dealer. And he is still living, but I've had some experiences with him that weren't all the best by any means. But I didn't know him as I was younger because my stepfather had already married my mother. Now, that's the last time that I'll mention my stepfather, because he's not my stepfather, he's my father. The man who married my mother's second marriage, is my father to me because he raised me. And he was there for me throughout my life. And no matter what, I respect him in so many different ways. And the thing is, because I didn't know who my biological father was, I wasn't told until I think I was 11, about having a biological father. But the thing is when I was told, I kind of rolled with it. Not a big deal. My grandmother taught me who he was through newspaper clippings. Of when he would get arrested and when he would get into fights with the sheriff, or, he was a drug dealer. So he would get into different issues with the law. And so I learned of my biological father through newspaper clippings from my grandmother. Now, here's the thing, and I think that you can really identify with this. And that is, as I got older, and you mentioned the word abandonment, I never realized how abandoned I felt with that being the case. And I never realized how it really impeded on my health, because it never made sense to me, because I was very lucky compared to a lot of people. I mean, I never had to worry about food on the table, never had to worry about a roof over my head. You know, there were definitely some advantages that I had that my parents provided for me.
Sure.
Whether it be through sacrifice of their own in order to be able to give me more. For instance, you know, I was able to go to a pretty high accredited high school in the region. It was actually number 6 in the country at the time. So I was really lucky to have that. And from a person's point of view, looking in from outside, they would say he had it all.
Mm-hmm.
Not realizing, like you mentioned, there's ways that it seeps out. And while I was behind closed doors, I hated my looks. I hated my voice, hated my name. I hated everything about me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because of that abandonment, right? It was because apparently there was something that was going on. You know, I'm going to mention a word, subconscious, to you, and I want you to be able to tell me what you think about that, because I like to take that thing out for a walk, let me tell you.
Sure.
You know, and so here it is. That's what happens behind closed doors. Or you mentioned masking. Again, outside of the closed doors, I look like I was fine. I look like, you know, I like to play sports. You know, I look like I had friends. It looked like I had things going in the right direction. Of course, I was a kid. I did stupid things. There was no doubt about that. But, you know, I played golf. I looked like I was going to have a promising career in that venue. I had the high school thing and everything like that. Masking wise, I was a pro. People really didn't realize what was going on the inside. I'm sure that you're finding that more and more and more with your 501c3 with no stigmas.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that's a big part, I think, of the journey that people go through. Not that everyone goes through it, but I think a large number of people do. You know, certainly that survival mode that we get into, you know, where you learn how to adapt, you learn how to fit in. You know, I think people who live with mental health issues, people who have lost loved ones to suicide, who have attempted suicide, I think they are the most resilient people. They are the most resourceful people because they draw on things that quote unquote normal people don't have to learn how to fit in to society, to learn to wear those masks and to learn skills to function in a world that is not set up for us. The 9-to-5 work week is not conducive to someone with debilitating panic attacks and depression. It's absolutely not. It's not set up for people who need to take breaks, who need to reset, who have to take extra care sometimes. You know, that adaptability is our biggest strength. And to anyone out there who's listening, I want to tell you, you're doing a great job. I know it doesn't feel like it sometimes, but the simple fact that you are surviving in a world that is not set up for you is a testament to that fact.
Oh, I totally agree. Totally agree. Matter of fact, the way that I describe it in my book that I'm writing, there's the word somewhere and there's the word anywhere. And yet I couldn't fit in for whatever reason because I just didn't feel like I could fit. I've been to doctors, and like you mentioned the word suicide, that's something that I've dealt with for quite some time. My first suicidal situation was when I was 8 years old. I literally was sitting there, and I'm not going to mention what it is that I was doing because I don't want to be triggering anybody, but I literally was doing something that was going to be extremely lethal. And I said, all I have to do is do this one thing, and then it's finally over. At 8 years old.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, that is, like you say, the world is really kind of brutal for somebody who's going through that type of situation within their head on a day-to-day basis. It's not like that just all of a sudden pops in, pops out, pops in, pops out.
Right.
It stays with you. You know, my first attempt was when I was 11 years old, and I'd been to doctors. And what was happening is that the doctor would sit there and I would mask, not realizing that I was doing that, right?
Sure.
And the doctor would sit there and say, he's just a boy being a boy. Meanwhile, I'm writing death threat notices to myself. Meanwhile, I'm starting a fire outside of my bedroom window. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there hating everything about me, yet I'm a boy just being a boy.
Right.
From a number of doctors, not just one. But again, you mentioned the word masking. I was a pro and not even realizing it or trying to be. My parents literally categorized me at a time. They were very frustrated at the time and they were worried, right? They were nervous. They were scared about what was going on because they knew some, they didn't know all, but they knew some. So they lashed out. And how they lashed out is that I was a master manipulator because I was convincing the doctor that there was nothing wrong with me. Yet all I was doing was sitting in their chair, sitting on their couch, doing whatever, being me, not realizing that I was literally masking the situation at all.
Yeah, and that's the flip side of the coin with this skill set that we've developed, this particular set of skills that we have, is that it can be detrimental to ourselves because we become so good at fitting in, so good at wearing that mask, that with the people that want to help us, like our parents, like our doctors, like our friends, we continue to pretend. And I think the reason why, the root of it, are stigmas. And they go beyond the way that people view and treat us, and they go to the very root of our system, of our society, the way that it's set up, the way that mental health and physical health are separated.
Right.
The way that they're approached, the way that they're insured, all of that sends us a message that says this thing is more important than this thing. And that message of your mental health, that stuff inside, is not as important. It goes to our very fiber, to our very core, and it makes us feel like we have to hide.
Yeah.
And what if instead we looked at our health, our wellness, ourselves as whole beings, that you can't separate the mental health and the physical health. One affects the other, and you can't certainly live without physical health. You can't live without your mental health. So why not integrate the two, and why not take a holistic approach to what we like to call wellness and say, hey, what can we do to support all of our being as healthy people? And that includes talking about it, just like you would with a physical ailment, just like you would with a broken arm, with pain in your stomach. You talk to your doctor about it, right?
Right.
It's no different when you have pain in your head or pain in your heart.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. And I totally believe that. That's the whole basis of the network that I built, was the Speaking the Heart radio network. I think that awareness really has movement when it's in everyday conversation. Now, I realize that there's a lot of different things that are part of that. There's a lot of conventions and special speaking and so forth in order to be able to get awareness involved. But I don't think that we're going to have true movement until it's in everyday conversation. And we're talking about mental health. We're further and further away from that than any way that we can even express. And to give you an example, you had mentioned how things kind of seep out in different ways, and it's different for everybody. For me, a way of coping was my world of addiction. And I had mentioned that my biological father, well, he was an alcoholic and a drug dealer, so I stayed away from all that. I stayed away from drugs. I stayed away from alcohol. I didn't want anything to do with addiction because I knew him and one of my uncles who was an addict. I was told, you don't want to be like. And so I definitely did everything that I could not to do that. Now, there's definitely a drawback to that because I was scared. I didn't go to parties because I couldn't get on the same level as other people who were drinking, doing, recreational drugs. Couldn't get there. And I didn't want to feel worse than what I already do naturally. Thing is, I'm still an addict. I didn't escape at all because I went into as a compulsive gambler. Gambling became my addiction. Now that I look at it from the outside looking in, I can see why. Because I lived on my accomplishments and I died on my failures in my lifetime. And so gambling fit. It was letting me breathe. When I would win, I literally felt like I was breathing again, as opposed to the times when I would lose. Obviously, I would be horrible. So anyways, I'm not condoning at all addiction, and I don't recommend it at all. But my point is, what everybody jumped on was the bandwagon saying his problem was addiction.
Sure.
The problem was addiction, not anything else. Because they didn't want to acknowledge the fact, hey, he was writing death threat notices to himself when he was 8 years old.
Right.
To further validate that, I now currently have over 9 years total time in recovery. Okay.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. When I reached 5 years, I had my own business and everything. I was suicidal every day.
Mhm.
Every day I felt as if like, is this the day that it's going to happen? There'd be a day as to where I'd be sitting there, I'm making money, doing the things that I'm doing. I'm not participating in my addiction. Everybody is liking me again, and I'm doing things, quote unquote, the right way. And yet I'm saying to myself as I'm driving down the road, all I have to do is turn the steering wheel just a little bit harder to the left, and it can be all over.
Right.
Just like I did it when I was 8 years old.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I know, I mean, it's not easy always to share our story. And, I appreciate that. That takes a lot of bravery. You mentioned this conversation, this daily conversation about mental health. And I think our stories are a big part of that. A decade ago, when I first started sharing my story, it was a different climate. We didn't have celebrity spokespeople. We didn't have Glenn Close. We didn't have Wayne Brady or Chris Evans talking about his anxiety. We didn't have
Carrie Fisher,
Lady Gaga. Yeah. It was kind of the Wild West of this. I've seen a huge shift. I've seen a huge shift over the last 10 years with people starting to share their story, people coming out with their mental health issues. And I think the tide is turning. And in the last, over 5 years now, that No Stigmas has been a 501c3 nonprofit. And our community has now grown to over 50,000 individuals.
Yeah.
We have this tide of stories that are being shared. And I think it's so important people do that. Not only is it cathartic, not only is sharing our story an important part of recovery, but it creates an environment where other people understand that they're not alone. Even though your unique journey is different, of course, no one else has your same exact set of experiences, but understanding other people go through stuff and that generally you can identify with what other people are going through. Man, there's so much power in that. There's so much power in that camaraderie. And that's what our ally program is really about. Teaching people the basics of how to be an ally to yourself through self-care, how to practice peer support in a sustainable way, in non-codependent way, that's a meeting of equals and a meeting of individuals who have each other's best interest in mind. And by being an advocate for the cause of mental health equality, of awareness, of suicide prevention, as you're able to giving back and putting yourself out there. This program, I think, is important because, as we say, it's mental health our way. And that doesn't mean that you don't work with a counselor. That doesn't mean that you don't go to a psychiatrist. It doesn't mean that you stop taking your pharmaceuticals. All it simply means is taking ownership of your own mental health, taking ownership of your journey and saying, how can I positively affect my situation? And chicken or egg, whether it's genetics or hormones or environment that causes the issues that you face, they're still your issues. It's still your journey. No one can fix you. No one can pick you up and carry you. You have to do it. That's the hard truth. But you don't have to do it alone.
His name is Jacob Moore from nostigmas.org, and we will be right back. Hey everyone, this is Shane Schultz of the Speaking the Heart Radio Network. Hey, make sure to mark down on your calendar May 7th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. That's the night that we're going to have a very special show all about mental health awareness. We've got a tremendous panel. It's going to be of 5 people. We got Gabe Howard, we got Chrissy Hodges, Z Malvern, Janine Huff, and Jacob Moore with some awesome music from Sapphire Rain. This is going to be a show that you are not going to want to miss. It's all about mental health awareness. It's called Living with Mental Health Through a Patient's Point of View. It's going to be bringing a lot of awareness to a subject that needs to be talked about. So make sure to join us Sunday night, May 7th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the Speaking the Heart Radio Network. And we are back here with Jacob Moore of NoStigmas.org. We're having a great conversation here. We're talking about no stigmas. You know, Jacob, you had mentioned something really important to me, and that is that we need to take ownership of our own recovery. Ironically, that is one of our foundations of Arisen Strength, and that is to take ownership because you are the difference in your recovery. And then the second is the power of turning the thought, which is a big thing when it comes to doing that. And then number 3 is the freedom of acceptance. As soon as you accept what the limitation may be, then you can go ahead and you can do anything else that's out there that's available for you. So that's what we do. We utilize our pillars and our foundations, and they really are parallel to what it is that you're talking about with NoStigmas.org. Take ownership is a big, big thing, but you've got take action. Now, what's take action mean with NoStigmas.org?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, they go hand in hand largely. Taking action for us can mean a lot of different things. Simply taking steps towards your own wellness in a positive way is taking action. Joining a peer support group, whether that's online Facebook group or whether that's in your own community through a No Stigmas meetup, taking those steps to connect with other community members. Or if that's through advocacy, if that's sharing your voice on social media, we have these cards that say, I have no stigmas, and we call them our selfie cards. We send them out to community members, and a lot of people like to snap a selfie with them and upload that on social media with hashtag no stigmas. And that's not only a show of solidarity, but it's a way of saying, I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed to claim this. I may live with anxiety. I may live with depression. You may live with bipolar disorder or addiction. But what ties us all together, or what can tie us all together in this community, is living with no stigmas. Living that on a day-to-day basis, one step further, and they take action in more tangible ways in the real world. Political canvassing, advocacy, and awareness events. We have a virtual 5K that we do every May in Mental Health Awareness Month. Some people use that as community building. Some people do that as a fundraiser. We've had music benefits, you name it. People take actions large and small. But what we tell everybody, what we encourage everybody is, however you take action, do it in a sustainable way that's good for you, that meets you where you're at in your journey. And if today that's just getting out of bed, that's okay. If it's something big, great, fantastic. But it's mental health your way.
Yeah, we like to say it's progress, not perfection.
Absolutely.
If you can do a little bit more than what it is that you did the day before, that's okay. There's going to be times where you cannot. But the bottom line is it's about the overall picture in better wellness and better health. You mentioned May as being Mental Health Awareness Month. Folks, I want to let you know that we are going to have a special roundtable, Living with Mental Health, during the Mental Health Awareness Month of May. And we are very happy to say that Jacob has agreed to be one of our panelists on that special show. So I wanted to say thank you for doing that for us.
Absolutely. I'm super excited. It sounds like it's going to be a really cool event to get the brain trust together and talk about mental health.
Yeah, and bringing the awareness conversation to the forefront for people to take and then utilize in everyday conversation. That's the whole point. So I got to tell you, I'm a little bit jealous. I mean, you ended up with the looks. He ended up with the Zen-like demeanor, of which I'm still trying to get to, and he was a stunt devil. so he's a stunt man in the making. I've wanted to be one since I was a kid. Stunt person or a race car driver. I didn't get to do either of those. What's that like?
Well, I'll say this, Shane. It is never too late.
Okay.
It is never too late to sacrifice your body for the film, man. No, I will say, I didn't have the easiest childhood, but one thing that I was fortunate to have was some athletic aptitude, and I got involved in gymnastics when I was young. That idea I could do cool things with my body, that I didn't need a gym, that I didn't need a ball. I needed myself, and I could do that anywhere. And, I guess that's that sort of self-sufficiency, there's a theme there for sure. But that translated into later years. I didn't really play team sports. It was always kind of a solo thing. I was always myself. I've done acrobatics and gymnastics, and I practice Taekwondo. That's something that I do 5 days a week. It is a community. It is a discipline. It is a physical fitness. And I got to tell you, it is so integral to my mental health.
Right.
And my wellness in general, because if I don't go and do something physical for a day or two, man, my anxiety goes up, my mood goes down, my energy goes down. It is so evident in my life that I need that I feed off of that. And when I don't have it, things go down pretty quickly for me. So, the stunt work is really, it's a byproduct of that. It's a byproduct of being in the entertainment industry and, doing voiceover work and on camera work. And, someone's like, hey, you can do a flip, you can take a punch, you can fall down. Okay, cool. Let's have you do that.
It's like, oh, we're going to use you.
Yeah, exactly.
But you mentioned the routine that you have in which the physical fitness portion of things. A lot of my audience deals with chronic pain, deals with chronic illness. And I want to mention this as well. No stigmas. Is it specific to just mental health, or is it also in regards to all stigmas? Because there's a lot of stigma in regards to medical side of things as well.
Yeah, it's really funny you should mention that, Shane, because we've been talking about that a lot at the board level and with our advisory council, because it did start off as a mission for mental health equality and to raise awareness about suicide. But the more, I mentioned that idea of holistic integrative wellness, and the more that we grow and explore and our community expands, we're realizing, those stigmas exist about a lot of things. Yeah. And, they can exist about living with HIV. They can exist about addictions, certainly. And it goes on from there. I was at one point diagnosed with fibromyalgia.
Okay.
And
a lot of stigma there.
Among other things, bipolar disorder, you name it. They diagnosed me with it and gave me drugs for it. But I think that's a very misunderstood disease, and one that we still don't know a lot about, but we certainly know that it's very tied to mental health and also to physical fitness. I'm not saying that working out is a cure for anything. Right. And I'm not saying that eating right is going to fix your brain, but can they help? Can they help support your wellness? Absolutely. And when we diversify the tools that are in our tool belt, instead of just relying on pharmaceuticals, just relying on therapy, and we also add peer support and fitness and nutrition, and we're monitoring our sleep, and we're giving back in a sustainable way, then suddenly we have all the tools that we need to build a house. And if your hammer breaks and suddenly you find yourself without a therapist, could you use a wrench to hammer in a nail? Sure. It may not be the tool of choice, but you still have tools there. That's a big part of our education, is saying diversify. Have as many tools in your tool belt as you can. That way, when something doesn't quite go right, you have other things to lean back on.
Yeah, no question about it. I had an interview not that long ago with Diamond Dallas Page of DDP Yoga.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah, he is awesome. And I've been a fan of his since I was really young.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's great. I used to watch wrestling all the time.
Did you?
Yeah.
I remember when he was with the Freebirds. He was a manager of the Freebirds. And I didn't even realize it until I started an interview. And I'm like, holy cow.
Wow.
But the thing is that he talks about with DDP Yoga, the food. Yeah. And how important that is.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things that we try to get across. We have the Health and Wellness Project on the Speaking of the Heart Radio Network, which, folks, we're going to be bringing back with Joelle the Lupus Stephen May. We're attacking a lot of these subjects from a lot of different angles with the Speaking of the Heart Network.
That's great.
So that's what it is that we're looking to do. And Arisen Strength started it all, because what it is that the Arisen Strength Motivational Podcast got so big to the point as to where we started having people on like you and realizing that they had their challenges and struggles, but they were so much more than that. Right? I mean, you talked about the breath, right? You talk about how physical fitness, you talk about being a stuntman and doing things physically with gymnastics and everything like that. That's you, right? You're not your mental health. Your mental health is a portion of you. And what we want to do is that we want to make that struggle, that challenge, a smaller percentage of our lives.
Absolutely.
And emphasize what it is that we really are meant to be. Speaking of which, what are some things that you got going in the future? What is it that fans can look forward to in the near future with you and No Stigmas?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, our Ally program is rolling out. Super excited about that. May being Mental Health Awareness Month. That's a natural time to launch that for us. And it coincides with a lot of community member activations. So it's a time where you're going to see a lot about No Stigmas out there. And then, of course, in September on World Suicide Prevention Day, we have our annual Celebrate Life Wellness Fair. This will be the 5th year that we've had a Celebrate Life event, but the 2nd year that it's in this wellness fair format. And that happens in Chicago. It's super cool because we get together health and wellness practitioners, nutritionists. We have yoga, meditation, art therapy, pet therapy, you name it, anything that's integrative, including our counseling partners there in-house. And our community members get to come through and get to connect. You get to explore everything from aromatherapy to acupuncture and everything in between.
Cool.
Yeah, it's just a really, really great way to find some tangible ways to see what works for you, what resonates with you. It culminates with lots of good food, games and activities for the kids, and our Mental Health Hero Award, which last year Kevin Hines, good buddy of mine, international speaker, author of Cracked Not Broken, can't say enough good stuff about that guy. He was our No Stigmas hero last year. So fun event to look forward to on September 10th, World Suicide Prevention Day.
September 10th, World Suicide Prevention Day. Okay. Yeah, because as you know, a lot of people that are going through, whether it be mental health or medical health issues, a lot of them are on disability. So you kind of want to get ahead and let them know ahead so that they can prepare for that date and hopefully maybe able to make some provisions to be able to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. To that end, for those who can't physically be there at our events, whether it's a 5K or it's a Celebrate Life, the online community is there. And, a big part of what that's about is empowering you to discover community nearby.
Right.
In your own neighborhood to the extent, which you're able. It may not be accessible for someone who lives with social anxiety, but to connect, we have No Stigmas meetups, which look a lot of different ways. It can be a book club. It can be a running group for people with anxiety. It looks like that individual community. I think that's, if I have one sentiment for all of this, is it looks like you. It looks like your mental health, and however that looks, that's okay.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So where can people find you and find nostigmas.org, whether it be social media or in your different events that you got going?
Yeah, absolutely. Nostigmas.org is the main place to go. But of course, you can connect on social media at No Stigmas on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. I think we even have a Vine account. I don't know. But yeah, you name it. Look up No Stigmas with an S because there's more than one. Mm-hmm. And if you want to connect with me personally, jacobmoore.com.
Awesome. Jacob, it's been great to have you here. Looking forward to having you on our special for living with mental health. It's just been great to have you here with us.
A pleasure. Pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
And don't forget, folks, it's No Stigmas Ally program. It goes live May 1st. It's about celebrating Mental Health Awareness Month. It's a program that brings online training and support, empowering you to be a No Stigmas ally through self-care, peer support, and advocacy. All members get access to wellness tools, the different events, as well as free gear. So be sure to visit nostigmas.org today. Make sure that you're notified right away when they go live on May 1st. You can learn more about the Arisen Strength Motivational Podcast at our website at arisenstrength.com. And remember, your time is now.
The sweetest moment of life I ever knew was when I opened my eyes and saw that you were my truth. Said, how did you know? How did you know? You'd be my angel. When your wings were trapped into my heart. Where did you see? And where did you see? That we would be wonderful. And our dreams would live where we are. How did you know that you'd be my angel when your wings were trapped trapped into my heart. Where did you see that we would be wonderful and our dreams would live where we are? How did you know that you'd be my angel when your wings were trapped in my heart? Where did you see that we would be wonderful